What's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning back into At Home Dude. We pretty much have an emergency episode today. A lot of people asked me to talk about whether kids should go back to school because it is a popular topic in the news, and I had some other plans going, but I am willing to adjust that for you. Thank you for tuning in, and I will be right back with that topic after this. All right, so my main thing here is I want to introduce different perspectives on this problem and whether it will be a problem or not, and we'll explore different ideas and bounce things off of each other. I really kind of wanted it to be more like a talk, so you can throw things in the comments please down below, and I will chat back and forth with you down there. So the biggest thing is just looking at perspectives and trying to broaden our perspective and knowledge base on this subject matter. First things first, we have to agree that this is actually a real thing going on. It is very serious, but there are people out there that seem to have doubts for whatever reason. Currently, the number of deaths is over 140,000 people. And I don't want to compare this to other tragedies that have happened, but I am going to compare it just so that we can get an idea for the size of the issue that we are dealing with. Between September 11th, Vietnam, and World War I, that is around 180,000 deaths. And if the coronavirus continues to go on the path that it is going, and we're at pretty much an all-time high right now, day to day, we could be approaching that pretty soon. So that is huge. And I know that's really depressing, but we just want to use that as a barometer to figure out what kind of scale of a problem that we are dealing with. Obviously, those situations are all different, but just gives you an idea. Now to address some recent news about it, the leader of the United States came up and spoke about it recently and said that he really wanted schools to open and that he would put pressure on governors to open the schools. Also, the governor of Missouri spoke about it. He said, "These kids have got to get back to school. They're at the lowest risk possible. And if they get COVID-19, which they will, and they will when they go to school, they're not going to the hospitals. They're not going to have to sit in doctor's offices. They're going to go home and they're going to get over it. We got to move on. We can't just let this thing stop us in our tracks." Now, it's important to know that politicians often act in ways to promote re-election and to secure their careers. What they say in the mic can often contradict what they actually do in their personal life. All right, now that all of that is said, let's get to our big talking points, which really is just risk assessment and management. You want to go into this problem wondering, what is the biggest risk that we're gonna be taking and what is the reward? In the best case scenario, our kids go back to school, our teachers put on another hat and they take the risk and they educate our children, and a lot of parents are going to be happy because their kids are out of the house, so that will affect them positively to be able to either go back to work or be able to work from home more effectively. So now for the risk, the worst case scenario is that obviously the children end up spreading the virus much more rapidly, and they plague the entire community by spreading it to the entire community in a very rapid pace, causing hospitals to be overwhelmed and not be able to take care of many of the people who need help. This situation could be devastating and could kill some people who otherwise might be able to get help if the curve was more flat. Now let's take the perception of the children. For the kids, the pros are supposed to be that it will improve their social life, even though there will still be social distancing. It will improve their development, obviously, and all of these should help limit or lessen the risk of depression and other mental illnesses as an effect from the trauma of staying at home and being enclosed and isolated. Also, there are some children who rely on the school system to give them meals throughout the day, and so they will be able to have more meals that are nutritious and healthy for them. From what I gathered, most children were not too worried about being harmed by COVID and believed that they would be okay. Now, from the perspective of the kids, it's a little bit different when you're talking about their mental state. I will attach one of the videos in the description and you can watch it. These are children talking about how they feel about what is happening and what if they go to school, how they would feel. So currently they were saying things like they were tired of being in the house and they really wanted to hang out with their friends, which if they go to school, they may not really be able to hang out with their friends too much because they would want them to be socially distant. But it will help their social life a bit because they still would be able to talk and chatter and be around other children. In that video, they said that 64% of teens were saying that they felt some sort of isolation or depression. Now, looking at the expected mental state of the children, it wasn't exactly a shoo-in. A lot of people think that the children are going to be happy-go-lucky, they will be happy to go back to school and have no worries, but that isn't exactly the case. One of the children specifically spoke about bringing home the disease to his grandparents and how he felt worried about that. So in terms of trauma, stress, and fear, it doesn't necessarily mean that it would go away, rather than it may just change. I'm no professional, but just giving it some critical thought, I figure, kids are under 10 years old may be a little bit oblivious to it all, but the kids who are old enough to know that they could be carriers would likely feel some type of fear or trauma in terms of giving it to their grandparents or parents once they got home. Now, to close out the kids as a whole from their perspective, the things I do want to say is that recovering from COVID does not mean that you did not suffer any damage. Heart damage and other organ damage has been looked into, and specifically for young children, toddlers and younger, several different sources speak of young children suffering damage called multi-system syndrome. It is an inflammatory illness affecting the heart and organs, but a lot of this research still needs to be done to find out exactly what is going on. Now let's talk about the adults. Like I said before, it's pretty much going to be, yay, the kids are out of the house. I can go to work or I can work more effectively. But the downside is going to be the potential of your own children giving you COVID. And if that does happen, you are kind of caught up in this situation with what to do if you decide not to go to the hospital. Who is taking care of your kids? How do you take them to school at that point? And how do you get everything organized to work smoothly, aside from even just paying your bills and other things that people have to worry about? And honestly, that's all I got for the adults. All right, so the quick and easy one that I want to address in terms of perspective is class. Obviously, on one side, you have the affluent and wealthy, and you have the other people who are struggling just to get by. When looking at the wealthy side, I saw a lot of distance learning still being talked about. Essentially, they have the resources and the money to be able to make that happen where it doesn't disturb their day-to-day too much, and they are still going to pursue distance learning rather than putting their children in school. When I looked at the other side of it, the other side is people are working day-to-day, and a lot of them are essential workers already, so they are going out and they are working and coming back home anyway. And they have to deal with their children and try to figure out who's going to watch them. So it's not as much of a choice for them. They are going to put their kids in school because it is what works with their everyday life, and they have their bills to pay, and that is more of a problem for them, finances, and so they really need to get it done, and they don't have much of a choice. So the last perspective I want to explore is the most complex of them all, which are all of the adults that will be involved with taking care and monitoring these children at schools. It is very easy to say, yeah, at the beginning of school, each child will come in and get their temperature taken, and all of these different things that you want to set up. For example, around my area, they are talking about doing 2 days for half of the school, and then on Wednesday cleaning the school, and the other half of the school would go to school on Thursday and Friday. There are many different hybrid ideas on how to work this. I am very happy that people are really thinking about this and trying to come up with solutions, but I just want to stress that it isn't just a walk in the park. A lot of people who don't work at schools don't think about things like, well, if a child does have a fever, usually you have to isolate that person on their own. So what do you do then if you really only have a few extra classrooms at your school and 5 kids come down with fevers? Where do you isolate them? Who is going to monitor them considering they are children? Obviously, you are going to call their parents. What if their parents additionally get sick? How are you going to isolate them? Where are you going to put them? A lot of schools run out of physical space to do this. Some schools are also talking about having classes outside. I actually think that is a good idea. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing you are worried about isn't really the kids, since it seems as though they are able to beat this disease at a great rate. What you are really worried about are your workers and the adults who are handling all of the sanitation, the cafeteria, whatever it is. You are asking these workers who do not have a salary or insurance based around doing work that exposes their health to all of a sudden take on that risk. Let me give you a quick example. If you decide to be a police officer, generally they have certain type of insurance, a pension, and a salary that reflects the fact that you will be risking your life every day. But if you decide to be a teacher, their structure for finances and insurance is not really set up to account for that, but you are asking them now to do that. It's not really fair, and some teacher unions have already begun to fight back against that. There are tons and tons of tiny logistical and economical problems for each school that this would cause, and they would have to figure out a way to solve it. And I know a lot of people out there don't care and they just want their kids in school, and they might say, hey, just figure it out. But being realistic, it's an absolute nightmare. So we explored this from multiple different perspectives, and we are almost done. I just want to leave you off on a positive note. So myself, no, I would not put my kids back in school. But my view of school is a little different than your average. I believe there are a lot of life skills that you can teach your kids while they are not in school. And maybe some of you do this during the summer, but if everything falls apart and you are not able to put your kids back in school, do not get discouraged. I just want to remind you, yes, I know a lot of you have to work, but there are tons of things you can teach your children when you do have the time. And I encourage you to teach them something that involves learning, because I feel as though it passes time far quicker than just video games or whatever the case. Specifically, if you have older children that are able to do something like photography, you can really tie it into making money to try to inspire them to learn. So I just want to float that out there to you. You can give them a camera or your cell phone. They can go in the backyard and take pictures of bugs, and then you can have them put them on an image stock website and potentially sell their images to a magazine or someone who wants to use their pictures. All of this, we are learning and living in the moment, and this whole school thing, like I said before, I wouldn't put my kids in school, but next week, hopefully we can break it down a little more and talk to people and find out their opinions. That's what I kind of have for next week. So thank you for watching to the end. If you like this, hit the like button. It helps me with the algorithm so other people see the video, and we're wrapping it up. Have a great one. Stay safe. Bada bing, bada boom.
Bada boom.